What happens next is uncertain, but the risk is clearer than ever. On the Israel-Lebanon front, the ceasefire is fragile, Hezbollah's arsenal is under scrutiny, Israel's tolerance is fading. A single incident could ignite full-scale conflict. On the Iranian domestic front, the execution surge is a signal of shift, internal repression, external messaging, and regional posture combined. And because Iran sits at the center of both stories, connections between internal policy and external posture cannot be ignored. As of now, diplomats are scrambling Washington, and allied capitals are pressing the Lebanese government to enforce the terms of the ceasefire. Tehran faces diplomatic isolation over its human rights record, but also retains regional influence. The complicating factor: war fatigue. Populations on both sides have endured years of low-level warfare. Economies are battered. Political systems are weak, yet the dynamic remains combustible. In the coming days, watch for three specific indicators: whether Israeli strikes in southern Lebanon increase in frequency or scale, whether Hezbollah conducts a major cross-border attack, whether Iran orders another wave of executions with public signaling. Each of those alone is grave. Together, they could define the trajectory of the Middle East in the near term. To paraphrase one Lebanese military analyst, the border zone is a pressure valve that has been leaking slowly for months. Now the seal may snap. At the same time, a human rights expert in Tehran observed, the wave of executions is not just a crackdown, but a message to all actors, internal and external, that Iran remains unshaken. The confluence of war risk and human rights catastrophe raises profound questions. Can diplomacy still work in a region where missiles, militias, and state executions all converge? Or are we entering a new phase in which quiet repression and overt warfare merge into a single continuum of conflict? For the people living in the hell zone along the Israel-Lebanon border, or in Iran's prisons waiting for the executioner's knock, this is far more than a geopolitical story. It is their daily reality. Yet while one hot war teeters on the edge, another drama is unfolding inside Iran itself, less visible but no less severe. According to Amnesty International, Iranian authorities have executed more than 1,000 people in 2025, representing the highest number recorded in at least 15 years. Amnesty says this surge coincides with a horrifying assault on the right to life. The UN's Human Rights Office described the wave of executions as appalling and noted that many of them were for drug offences, crimes which under international law do not ordinarily meet the most serious threshold for capital punishment. The scale of the executions is staggering. One monitoring organisation records at least 1,000 deaths by September 2025 alone, noting that the real number is likely higher due to secrecy and restricted reporting. It counts dozens of ethnic minority prisoners, Kurds, Baloch, Afghans, among those executed, many for charges of espionage or security offences. One activist described the campaign as a mass-killing campaign that amounts to crimes against humanity. In Tehran, the government insists it is enforcing its laws and upholding justice. International observers say the key question is this: are these executions part of a legitimate criminal justice system or a state mechanism of repression deployed in a moment of regional turmoil? After all, Iran faces multiple strains: economic crisis, domestic protest legacies, notably the 2022 Mahsa Amini protests, and external pressure, including from Israel and its regional rivals. Some analysts interpret the surge in executions as a signal to internal dissenters, to regional rivals, and to domestic critics that Tehran remains firmly in control. Linking the two drama lines is Iran's broader role in the region. Iran, Hezbollah logistics, arms supply chains, and strategic alliance networks mean that what happens inside Iran does not stay inside Iran. It radiates outward, and vice versa. What happens on Israel's northern border can echo into Tehran. Thus, the execution numbers are not simply a domestic human rights story, they are part of the region's tectonic stress point. Turning back to the border, one Israeli military statement is telling: face-to-face with Hezbollah's missile threat, the IDF says it will act preemptively when and where necessary. Hezbollah, for its part, says it is ready to defend Lebanon to the last bullet, and that it will continue supporting the Palestinian cause in Gaza. With that kind of mutual rhetoric, the chances of miscalculation grow. While diplomatic channels remain active, the level of trust is minimal. The Lebanese government, already mired in economic collapse and governance dysfunction, struggles to impose its writ over a powerful militia, Beirut's ties to Tehran complicate the picture further. Israel's alliance with the US and its intelligence superiority do not guarantee peaceful outcomes. Whole swathes of southern Lebanon and northern Israel could quickly become battle zones. The humanitarian dimension is likewise intensifying. In Lebanon, agricultural land is scorched, freshwater wells are damaged, infrastructure is gone. Turkey, Israel's northern neighbor, is less than 100 kilometers away. In Israel's north, residents live in bunkers, schools remain closed, and economic activity is disrupted. Aid agencies warn that if full-scale war breaks out, the refugee numbers could rival those of 2006. In Tehran, the secretive nature of executions means families often don't know the fate of inmates. Lawyers are denied access. Trials are opaque. Human rights groups say the rule of law is being eroded. The UN's special rapporteurs have repeatedly called for moratoria on execution and for Iran to comply with international human rights standards, but with little sign of change. The Middle East finds itself on a hair trigger. Rockets and drones cross the narrow border between Israel and Lebanon, even as a shadow war of executions unfolds inside Iran. In two theatres separated by geography, yet bound by complex alliances and pressures, the prospect of wider escalation is now palpable. On the northern front, the tension between Israel and Hezbollah has edged ever closer to crisis. On the southern flank of Beirut and along the Litani River, southern Lebanon remains thick with fear and uncertainty. Israeli military activity has ramped up in recent days. The Israeli military acknowledged 2 additional strikes in southern Lebanon, one near Bint Jbeil and another in Blida, in which a civilian was killed and others wounded. Meanwhile, an earlier air raid on a Palestinian refugee camp in the region left 13 dead. The IDF also carried out strikes in Gaza's Rafah and Khan Yunis regions. In Beirut, many residents still picking through bomb-shattered buildings face the uncomfortable realization the so-called cessation of hostilities is anything but stable. On one side, Israel insists that Hezbollah remains a growing threat. On the other, Hezbollah refuses to relinquish its arsenal, insisting it must defend Lebanon's sovereignty. As one regional expert put it, Hezbollah's refusal to disarm makes direct negotiations between Lebanon and Israel more likely. At the core of that impasse lies the Litani line, literally the narrow strip south of the river in southern Lebanon that the Lebanese army was meant to deploy in, while Hezbollah fighters pulled back or stood down. Yet Israel claims the group is rearming, digging in, and in some areas still operating within the restricted zone. A cancellation of the Lebanese army chief's trip to the US, reportedly over accusations that he has failed to curb Hezbollah's armaments, underlines the fraught politics inside Beirut. One Israeli analyst puts the risk bluntly. The rearmament is straining an agreement that ended a punishing 2-month Israeli campaign against the group a year ago. While both sides publicly claim they don't want a full-scale war, the logic of war by attrition, the strikes, the counter-strikes, suggests that the region could easily stumble into one. For Hezbollah, the calculus is stark. Give up its heavy weapons and it risks surrendering its long-cherished role as protector of Lebanon's Shiite community and as a key regional actor aligned with Iran. For Israel, any build-up of precision missiles near its northern border is intolerable. The result, dozens of strikes, dozens of casualties, and a pressure cooker atmosphere in which one misfired rocket or misread order could deliver explosion. A senior UN civilian official recently warned that the fragile ceasefire was being tested yet again. Virtually every village and hamlet along the border lives in evacuation mode. Early morning sirens, phone warning messages, families shifting between relatives' homes, farms abandoned. For southern Lebanese farmers whose olive trees have been burned, whose livestock fled or perished, the human cost is mounting. In Israel's northern districts, tens of thousands of residents remain displaced, waiting. Against this backdrop of kinetic escalation is the deep geopolitics. Hezbollah is backed by Iran. Israel is backed by the US. Iran, in turn, is being accused of expanding its influence across the border through arms shipments and logistics via Syria. Israel has warned that if Hezbollah is allowed to rebuild and rearm, the next war won't be a border skirmish. It will be full-blown.